is neat, useful, or otherwise valuable, right? We apply science to understand our work. That's the goal of the DORA program. And here's the thing about science. Science is awesome. Science is also messy. It's always changing. And science is fundamentally uncertain. In fact, that's what science is all about. Science is the path we take, the tools we use when we are prepared to admit that we don't know things. And we use science to get closer to knowing them, but we never really completely know them for sure. We just get more and more validation of some things and less validation of other things. And that is science, and we love it. So here at DORA, we use science to understand software delivery, understand teams, dynamics, organizations, understand the software delivery process, what it can do for our businesses, how it affects us as humans. And here's what science tells us. Science tells us things like this, that, tells us this, tells us things like that. These are all artifacts from the DORA research program. Each of them represents a whole lot of data and analyses and analytical work to put together the pieces and figure out the dynamics between them. This is really cool. But what do we do with that? So I think what we really wish that science would say is something like this. Here it is. Go do this. You're welcome. Unfortunately, that's not how science works, and we don't want it to, but it leaves us with a little bit of a gap, right? On the one side, we have science. Awesome. It is using its fundamental methods of unknowing. It is always changing. It is always uncertain. On the other side, we have practitioners who are trying to get by in a day-to-day job, and I think importantly for our purposes, try to get by and make change year over year, right? DORA is meant to be something that can help practitioners achieve change in your organization. Change of things like process, changing tools. Ooh, that's hard. Changing culture, that's really hard and takes years, probably. And so we have a challenge if we're all we have is the science is going to change all the time, and it's really hard to anchor a multi-year transformation project and a cultural change and communicate that upward and outward with something that's always shifting under our feet. The last thing we want to do is stop the science, pause the science because we're having trouble keeping up with it. But there's an opportunity here for some sort of intermediate, some way of helping us bring the science to the practitioners. So the practitioners can have confidence day over day. I'm pretty sure I know what direction the science is pointing me while the science continues to move forward. So an analogy is something like medicine, where you have medical research. Medical research, I don't know if you've read, the front page of the newspaper or front page of the health section. The thing that they told you was really good for you yesterday, today they're telling you it's terrible for you. However, this is based on new studies that should not necessarily be put into practice. This is where something like the American Medical Association, or whatever the equivalent in your country might be, this is an organization that absorbs all the science and then figures out what are the guidelines. And those guidelines change more slowly than the science. Those are guidelines, things that we can pretty well lean on. They are going to change. The recommendations they make now are different than the recommendations they made in the 1970s, but they're not different than the recommendations they made yesterday. And then that is something that the doctors can bring into their practice and do day by day with you, the patient, and you can have confidence that's probably pretty good advice. In our community, what fills that role? Well, one thing that fills that role is the wonderful people of this community. And it is so wonderful to have you all as folks who are interested in reading that first primary sources of the science and participating, giving back to us and helping synthesize that for the practitioners. Fantastic. So what I want to offer is something to help this community. This is a tool that you can use in your work of bringing the science to the practitioners, and it's called DORA Core. DORA Core is a whole lot of words, but the important bit is it's the most firmly established findings from across the history of the research. And it's really intended to be used in your practitioner context. This is the first thing that you can bring when someone says, let's try some DORA. You don't necessarily want to give them a 100-page DORA report. When they're ready for it, awesome. But you're here to distill that, to serve it up to them, and this is a tool for serving to them. DORA Core is made of things that we have seen throughout the history of the research that have been repeatedly validated and that are useful to practitioners. So how do we make it? Well, we start by taking our structural equation models, These are the results of the analytical processes based on the data we collect that say, here's the dynamics we've observed that there's evidence for in a given year. And we kind of stack them all on top of each other. And then we sort of blur them all together and maybe defocus our eyes a bit. And we find what are the dynamics that are most common, most durable, most strongly reinforced across the years. And we developed something like this. So this is our DORA Core model. You can find it at dora.dev/research. It was published last year as version 1.1. It will be versioned and continuously updated indefinitely. So it should look kind of familiar. You've seen these words before, but this is a formulation that we're standing by and are committing to maintaining and updating in a way that you can bring into a practitioner context. Now, you might think that this diagram itself feels familiar. A lot of these concepts are again, tried and true, but the idea as well might seem a little bit familiar. This is actually not the first time that we've tried to do something like this. And in fact, there have been many artifacts in history that take multiple years of research and stick them together into a single model. Some of them are bigger than others. Some of them are called things like BFD, Big Friendly Diagram. And these have served us well, but we're doing something new now. And the new thing with DORA Core is that we have a rubric. We have a published rubric to decide what goes into it. So point one, it has been repeatedly demonstrated. At least 2 times, we've researched it and have evidence for it. 2 is it's proven valuable to practitioners, folks like us and the people that we serve out in our organizations. And if it meets those criteria, it's eligible for Core. So then those are the things this year that we summed up into this model. I want to zoom in to the top right here. This is a simplification of a simplification. And what it says is capabilities predict performance, which predicts outcomes. We've seen evidence of this going all the way back to the beginning of DORA, and we have evidence of it from our practices. But it's a way to kick off the conversation in some ways with someone that we might be introducing this to. Someone says, I care about my business's success. Okay, that's an outcome. How do I get there? Well, software delivery performance can predict that. Okay, how do I get that? I use the technical and cultural and process capabilities. So then we zoom back out, and here is our model. Right there in the middle in the green, we have our beloved DORA metrics, 4 of them. These are the 4 key core DORA metrics that we've seen year over year. Then that feeds into the organizational performance and well-being outcomes on the right side. And then moving leftward, we can see how do we move the needle on those software delivery performance metrics, and that's all of our capabilities. As I mentioned, you find this on dora.dev, dora.dev/research. And the great thing of using this model as a starting point is that each one of the bubbles on here links to further resources. So if you click one, you'll get a quick summary. What is continuous delivery, for example? And then if you want to say, okay, great, I think that's the place I want to start. I want to focus on that for my team. What do I do? How do I understand it deeper? That links to this article in our capability catalog, which we have for every one of those bubbles. And that's going to tell you more about what it is, how to understand it, how to start improving it, and how to measure the improvements of that metric. So that capability catalog really is a wealth of information, and Core can be a way of introducing people to it. Core is not static, it's not point in time. This is continuous. So we're going to be continuously revisiting and revising Core. And as new concepts come in, as we get evidence for them, they may be added. If a concept loses relevance, if we start seeing its dynamics affecting our model, it may be removed. And some of the structural relationships may be revised, right? Some of the directional arrows of which things point to which things. Some things might pull out of that grouped technical capabilities and move into their own bubble, things like that. There's a lot of nuance here, and it's based both on the data and on the subjective interpretation of the team and the community. How can we use Core? Well, first off, share it. It's on the website. Please let people use it. Link to it, dora.dev/research. Embed it. You can grab the PDF. You can grab the ping, and you can put that into your presentations. You can add that to your wikis, things like that. This is a great resource for anyone where someone said, "What's a DORA?" Okay, this is a place to start. Print it out and put it on your bulletin board. And as you achieve each of the capabilities, check them off. But don't use permanent marker, because once you get through them all, you're going to go back again and improve all of them. it's a tool for continuous improvement. Now you might be asking, what about all of the various things that we've looked at in DORA that aren't on that diagram? And there are a few. And the reason they're not on there is because either we haven't researched them enough times, or we haven't seen enough evidence that they're useful in the community. And this is why we really rely on this community to help us understand what's useful and what do you want to see researched. So if there's something that's not on DORA Core and you say, I really wish it were there, I want to see it in the diagram, I want to use it, please let us know. If you look on that and you say, this doesn't jive with my understanding of the research, please let us know. How? Well, you'll find a discussion in our GitHub repo. It's at discussion/265. And this is where we're collecting feedback. It's, you can feedback about the technical implementation. You can feedback about the contents and what's on there. As we move into the next update for DORA Core, we will be relying heavily on the feedback we receive from that discussion. So that next update we're scheduled for early 2024. It's off cycle from the yearly publication. So we are close to releasing the next State of DevOps report right now. It's going to be coming out in a matter of weeks. And then after that's had time to soak a little bit in the spring or early next year, we're going to take a step back and say, what have we learned? How can we adjust our model? How can we add or change or subtract from this to make it more useful for people who are trying to adopt these ideas in their organization? So please help shape the next version of Core. Your feedback is essential to this. This is a collaborative process. Visit that link and tell us what you think. And I look forward to continuing the discussion.